Give it a minute or two, just to give people the chance to log in, and then we will introduce our panelists and our chair, and then we'll have start this conversation. So I'm Sheen Tailstone. I'm part of the adult education learning group team at Royal Museums Greenwich, and this is part of a programme on pirate women. Much of the programme has been focused on women who are actual pirates sailing the seas in the past, and we wanted to bring in a sort of modern pirate woman sailing the sound waves, and actually, I guess, bringing that story to the fore, which is often and usually the story of men. So I'm really excited to have these three incredible, groundbreaking, feisty, dynamic, badass women on this panel. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And it's great to have you all here. We've got such a big audience for this. So there's a hunger out there to hear these stories. So I'm just going to go through and introduce our panel. If their names are there, but give a wave so people know who you are. Our chair this evening is DJ Debbie. Debbie Golt is a dynamic arts consultant, broadcaster, DJ and writer of many years of experience. As a respected radio presenter, producer, editor, trainer, she currently has the Outer Globe, a weekly African music and wider arts programme on Resonance FM, which is a fantastic independent London-based radio. I recommend you tune in and support. Having been on radio since 1992, when she was part of Brazen Radio, one of the first all-women stations, Debbie was on Gaia Live, the world's first internet station broadcasting out of the Truman Brewery in the late 90s, early 2000s as well. Currently, she's a member of RAP, which is the Rock Against Racism Research and Archive Project. Debbie is also consulting on music and radio initiatives for Rock Against Racism, Militant Entertainment 1976-82 exhibition at the Delaware Pavilion down on the South Coast in Bexhill. And then we're going over to DJ Carmella. Originally from Toxteth in Liverpool, and came to London in 1980 to train as a nurse at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington. She soon found herself working in the famous Portobello Road at a vintage clothes shop called Risk. It was whilst there that she heard about Dread Broadcasting Corporation, otherwise known as DBC, a pirate radio station owned and controlled by Black people playing Black music. She managed a weekly slot on DBC playing 1960s sounds. DJ Carmella then found herself on London Wide Radio, or LWR, as DBC were hoping to get a legal license so they can come off the air, and this failed to materialise. She was one of the very few female DJs on LWR and remained on the station for 6 years, doing a weekly chart show on a Saturday night and late night show called In Between the Sheets. That was on a Sunday. I love that title. So.
I love that show.
And finally, we have DJ Angie D.
Hi.
Hiya, pirate radio DJ on various South London pirate radio stations during the mid-1980s, including TKO, what was called Total Knockout Radio, also LWR and Solar Radio. One of the first female DJ presenters specialising in Black music on Kiss FM from 1990 when it gained a licence, and also a DJ on Fem FM, J-Wave, Brazen, First Love and Sunkiss. DJ promoter, hosting her own gigs and events in various West End nightclubs, then managing Wild Club in London, Soho, running various music nights, including a women-only night and the Shebaz, which was a Sunday indoor market in the club. Thank you all so much for tonight. And I'm going to pass over to Debbie. I'll be back later to manage the Q&A, so get your questions ready. And we'll probably start the Q&A at about 20 or 7:15. So over to Debbie.
Greetings, welcome everybody. Hey, what really, really fine introductions. We're going to live up to these, or we have to live up to these. Yeah, and it's so lovely to be with you too, Angie, and Carmella, because I've known you in different ways over time. Angie, we were on Brazen Radio together, and we braved in Radio 1 Sound City, telling secrets of our trade together. And we've done stuff with women in music as well over the years. And it's lovely to reconnect as we have recently. And Carmella, I met you in your community work capacity doing fabulous things. And then I found out you had radio links as well, and you joined me on a show that we did highlighting the work of the work in the community and looking at radio histories. And I was at the ICA one time not so long ago when I think it was the Last of the Pirates was showing one of the male gaze views of pirate radio, and you were on the screen, and then suddenly there was a tap on my shoulder, and there you were. So it's really wonderful to actually be able to share our voices. So I'm just going to get in and ask you some questions. First one, I would love to know from both of you, what made you interested in radio? And also, how on earth did you get onto radio back in those days? I'll start with Angie.
Oh, well, I was a big fan of radio from a child. I used to listen to my little transistor radio under my pillow when I should be sleeping. So you can imagine it wasn't with my mum the next day. And then later on, I bought a bigger radio with a larger speaker, and I took that everywhere with me. I think being the only child, I had that as my company, really. And that's how I got into the love of music too. But there was no real desire or ambition to become a DJ at that time, or all through my schooling. There was no ambition to become on the airwaves or any kind of performing. In fact, I was quite shy. I dreaded the idea of being in front of a microphone. Can you believe that?
And Carmella.
Okay, so it's funny, I was really thinking back to when I first started DJing, and I remember being about 14 years of age and living in Benin. And my dad and his brothers, they built this nightclub. And when the nightclub was shut in the day, myself and my other brothers and sisters would sneak in and we'd play music. So that's my first kind of living memory of playing music. But I do remember when I heard about DBC. I mean, when you think back to the 80s, very few Black people had a voice. So, I heard about this station called Dread Broadcasting Corporation, and I thought, what is this about? This is incredible. How can I get on this station? How can I, as a young woman, get people to see me and to realize that, like coming from Liverpool, you were very, put into little pigeonholes of what you are as a Black woman. And I just wanted to get on the radio because I wanted people to get to know different aspects of different Black people that sometimes in certain parts of England, people didn't see Black people. So I understood at the age of 20 how important radio was. It was a form of communication. It was a form of media. It was a form of engaging with loads of different communities. So when I heard about this, I just had to get on. I didn't have any experience. I didn't know, but I just had to get on. And I really used all my energy and pursued it. And eventually I got on DBC. And that was 21. It was in 1981. And I was absolutely nervous, absolutely crap, but I didn't care. I was just going to do it. So,
yeah.
That's how I got on the radio. And so, yes, the music was really important, but also politically as well in those days. Remember, you didn't see no Black people on the radio. I'm sorry, hearing Black people on the radio. You didn't see any Black people on the telly. There was only 3 channels in those days. So what was being dictated to us, we had to kind of soak it up. And also, I just also felt that all the DJs on the radio were the same typical, I always call them medallion type of DJs, like the Jimmy Saviles, the Noel Edmonds. Yeah, exactly. There was hardly any women, and especially women of colour. So, and especially women like me that had a really strong Liverpool accent at the time. So that's how I got onto radio.
And Angie, how did you shift that interest into actually being on radio yourself as well?
Oh, that's a long story made short. I
Keep it short.
I quit my job at the Observer. I was brain dead after 7 years of working in the circulation department, and it was so mind numbing. I just quit one day. That was it. And within a few weeks, I was looking at the local newspaper for work, for job, and there was this advert for Radio Thamesmead, a community station about an hour's drive from where I lived, and they were looking for volunteers. So I thought, well, I've got loads of records. I can go and help someone, maybe in the library. I didn't have any clue about presenting a program or even producing. So I went along to the interview, and this lovely lady interviewed me, and she said, well, how about, getting behind the microphone and doing your own show? Well, I just shrank into the floor. I thought, there's no way I'm going to get behind a microphone. She said, no, we'll train you. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. They had no female voices on the station. And I thought, this is an opportunity now for me to be the first token woman, because that's what you were. Yeah. So that's how I got back in, how I got into the radio station. I was trained supposedly, but there was no training really, no formal training. I actually sat behind a guy and told to write everything down that he was doing on the Alice Soundcraft desk. And that's what I did. So then I'd book some time in the studio on my own and go back to Thamesmead and basically practice. So I would say I was self-taught. And in terms of linking and talking on a microphone, I overcome that. And because I wanted to learn about the music I was playing, so I had something to say about the artists. So that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I think I can do a soul and gospel show. And then one show a week. And it just went on from there. So when I went and transitioned to pirate, you can imagine I'm in a beautiful brand new how much £1,000 studio, aircon, wonderful, chairs on wheels. You know what it's like, Carmella. And I went into a pirate radio studio, which we'll talk about probably, which was appalling. In my opinion.
Let's talk about the pirate aspect and the pirate studios, because I had a flow of questions. There's some people in the chat saying, "Oh, are we on the right webinar? We thought we were coming to pirates." Well, you are in the pirate session. The whole of the museum series has been on women pirates that went to sea and did all that they did. And here we're taking it forward to pirates of the airwaves, and pretty risky stuff too if you're after the daring do. But pirate radio had to be, because even once the offshore pirates, which was Caroline and others, were made legal and stopped broadcasting, and we were given the sap of Radio 1, it was the Medallion Men. It was so anodyne. It was talking as if we were about 2 inches high, and their only interest in women was, things we won't mention. But it was, there were risks. It was the daring do of the time. So you're talking like, here we are, quite, women of a certain age. But how was it? Was it safe? What did you do? How did you cope with illegalities? I mean, there was the thing like we always walked a little the other side of the law. But Carmella, you start on this one.
Okay, so what I want you to kind of understand, first of all, I've got a DBC t-shirt on, so I just want you to see it, yeah?
The lift, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Rebel Radio.
If you can see, wonderful. There's a spliff hanging out the mouth. So you can imagine trying to wear, like if I went home to my mum and dad's and they saw this t-shirt, my dad would go, "Man, what have you got on?" Right? But what I really liked about it is that we were rebels. We were called Rebel Radio to begin with, and we were true rebels. It was against the law. You could go to prison. But the thing is, it was a cause. We had come out of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and now we're in the 80s. It's a revolution of young people. We want something different. We want different music. We want different fashion. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time in Portobello Road, and there was the punk movement. The punk movement was there, and that was thriving. So there was almost like this different stage. Now you've got Bob Marley out there. So people are like, well, what is this reggae music? What is that about? And no one played that music. The only station in the whole of Europe was DBC. They played reggae, and it was, you know, it was only on one day a week on a Friday, and that just it grew and it grew and it became enormous. We had so much support from quite a lot of posh people's children, like MPs and things like that. They would sponsor us, but it was against the law. I was working as a social worker at the time, and I had to keep it very quiet, and it was really difficult because I worked in a children's home. So all the kids knew that I was on the radio, and I tried to say, listen, don't, you know, it's like, it's illegal. And they were like, but you're playing the music that we want to hear. But the thing is, you could go to prison. For me at the time as well, if I got caught and got a criminal conviction, then I wouldn't have been able to do my job, because you can't have any convictions doing that kind of work. But the thing is, even though you knew it was illegal, you just did it, didn't you, Angie? You just did it. You had to do it. And as women as well, it's like we had the aspects of legal radio, but we also had the aspects that we were women. We were the first. We were the first. And you had to be quite tough, didn't you, Angie, to really deal with it. But I think once you're in that little pocket and you're just the love of it and what it's about, you get lost in it. You don't even, that's there, but you push it away. So
I think, I do agree. I think it's risky business. There is a fear. There was a thrill. Oh God, where do I start with some of the things I got almost caught up in? But it was the love of the music. There was nothing but the music. It wasn't about what I had for breakfast. It wasn't what I had for dinner. And it wasn't about a gig I was doing. I wasn't pushing anything. It was no ego whatsoever. It was all about the music. I mean, I even went to Philadelphia in the 80s to buy up my vinyl. And I came back with a caseload of vinyl. I couldn't hardly lift the suitcase. But that's the love and the passion for the music. Yeah. And it was very risky. You know, you could find unlimited amounts of money, as you know. You could get 2-year minimum imprisonment. And anytime we were sitting in that studio behind that microphone, there's no phones, there's no mobiles, there's no way of communicating outside of this room where you're totally on your own. And you are sitting, you're a sitting duck, actually.
Where were the studios? What were they like?
Ooh, they were So one other thing as well that I think it's really important to say, like, so Angie calls herself Angie D, and I used to call myself Carmella or Sister C when I first started. You never told anyone your true name. You never did. You know, just another thing as well, when I first started doing clubs, I didn't want to do clubs. The reason I didn't want to do clubs is because I didn't want anyone to know what I looked like. Do you know what I mean? So that was kind of quite for me. Anyway, so the studios. So DBC was kind of very secure, very safe. We had the same studio in the same place, but the transmitter was somewhere else. So I stayed in that studio for 2 years, which was great because it was a great learning club. LWR, you would be moving like the wind. So 1 week you're in this studio in a tower block, one week you're in the studio in a shop. You just get a phone call maybe sometimes 10 minutes before where the studio is. And most of the time they were not female friendly, were they, Angie? They were not. They were totally different. But in a way, I think you got used to the smell, the uncomfortableness of it. As long as the decks worked and the mic worked and you could lock the door, you were all right. Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
I think that, yeah, it was just in proper random places, you know. So, and Angie, it's funny, isn't it? We probably don't even think about the risks that we put ourselves in. It's only now I think, okay, yeah, that was proper risky place. That was a dodgy spot. How did I even go to that space? I would never go there now. Hell no. You know?
Exactly. I remember it was on the 10th floor in a block of flats. I was doing a graveyard show, which is like 1 a.m. till 4. I'm on my own. I'm in the heart of Bedford. In the tower block scenario, is my car going to be there when I come out? You know, and the lift doesn't work. And I've got my records in my shopping bag now. You can't go with the bluebird. You can't go with the bluebird plastic bag, record shop. You've got to go in there and be completely visible. And I had to worry about who I might meet in the stairs. But I did get friendly with some of the dealers. So I did feel protected. It was really bizarre. I was protected in a way.
Yeah.
At first, when they took me to this studio, I just thought, I don't know. But I did do it. And then after that, I just carried on. But yeah, those graveyards show times are not good, but they tend to put us in those first. Like when you go to a nightclub, you don't get the prime time spot, as you know.
Yeah, I did, to be honest, right, I did the graveyard shift for about a year. But to be honest, when I went on LWR, I was petrified, right? All those DJs were proper hardcore DJs. And I thought, how on earth am I going to be as good as them? So in a way, doing the graveyard shift, you always thought no one's listening. So you kind of relaxed a bit more into it. Kind of, went with it. And because it was like 3 or 4 hours, it's a long time to do a slot. So in a way, those graveyard shifts made me become who I became, and super confident. So, but they were proper scary, because you're talking about dead of the night. Yeah. And all you would see is the DJ coming before and the DJ coming after. If you were lucky.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask, because did you know many of the other DJs, I mean, quite apart from security, but in terms of meeting people, and did you come across any other women DJs? Yeah. I mean, so that it's kind of a double question, which is not a good radio question if you ask a double question. So did you, let's change it around. Did you meet other women DJs?
No. You didn't? Okay. I met other women DJs, right? And I was really lucky, because one thing about DBC, it was a very family community station. And there was only like 9 of us or 10 of us. And so it's the same DJs every time. We just did it for years. So I got to know Miss P really, really well. We spent a lot of time together, and we were very close as a family. So, I'd go to her hair house, she'd go to my house, I'd look after her kids, we'd go camping, we'd go and sell T-shirts in Glastonbury. So I got to know Miss P really well. And also on that station was Nena Cherry, and Nena used to do a show with another female DJ called Andrea Oliver, and she actually does a lot. She does a lot of cook programs, so she's really famous. But they used to do this show together. Their show was off the hook. It was a hip hop show. So I got to know them on DBC. On LWR, I got to know DJ Lane really well, because we worked together a lot when we used to do gigs. And also we used to kind of hang out a little bit, like, kind of support each other. Like, how do you find this? And how do you find that? So we kind of had that little sister thing going on. So I was quite lucky that I knew them. So, but I would always hear of others. Sometimes, like, there was a DJ on LWN, her name was Debbie Goby. I never met her. So sometimes you wouldn't meet anyone. And the next thing you know, they're no longer working on the station. So, but I feel I was quite lucky. I got to know people.
Yeah, I only knew Miss P for not that long, but via the telephone. We used to have a good moan sometimes, not that often, but yes. So I missed her when I moved. We lost touch. I knew of DJ Lane, but we never met, although we was on LWR together. I didn't really go to many meetings. It was more TKO meetings that I attended, the other pirate station. But no, I was the only woman, I think, then on TKO.
Yeah, because TKO, they didn't have I feel quite lucky, because on LWR you had Zach, and he really pushed female presenters. He knew, let's be honest, right? Our egos were not as big as the men. So when we delivered a show, we didn't talk all over the record. Do you know what I mean? You could actually listen to the record. Whereas the guys, it's a thing, they do their thing, they talk all over the record, maybe play that much of it. So he could see that women were, I'm going to say it, we're better than the guys. Yeah. But I do remember a lot of the other stations, though, they didn't have no women. Like Kiss had no women. TKO probably only had you. Solar, all those stations, they had no women. It was like a woman on the radio. It was like so rare.
And how did the guys treat you when you did meet them, or other people knowing you were a woman DJ? Because when I play, in later times, I've set it up, I've got my sound, and then someone thinks, just doing this. No way, mate.
Yeah. No, we didn't have that in the Pirates. Certainly had that in the clubs. I'd get a double look, because I was playing in black clubs mainly. And one guy came up to me and said, "Oh, you play really well. You play really well for a white woman." And Yeah. And then someone else said most of my record collection belonged to my boyfriend. You know, excuse me, I earned every penny to buy every single record, and I know everything about it. So, but most of the guys were fine. I didn't have any problems at all. We were just like a family that loved music. That was the united force. I felt we were on the pirate station. We were all taking risks, and we were doing it really for the love of the music. Unless you was a DJ doing it to push your gigs, then there's that too. So I didn't really have any problem.
And where did you find your music? Angie, you said you went to Philadelphia in search of music, but I mean, more generally, where did you find your music?
All right. Well, I was South East London girl, so I went down to Deptford, Sound City Records, and that was my regular. So Jesse would look after me. He knew exactly the kind of vibe that I enjoyed: soul, reggae, rare groove, as we called it back then, and some people still do now. And then I'd go to maybe Bluebird. I'd drive all the way over to Edgware. I'd go into Jetstar, which is North London, reggae place, distributor of reggae music. And there was others. There was one in Sydenham called Sound Off Records, charity shops, record fairs. I went down to Brighton. Every time there's a record fair, I was down there. I was just digging up a lot of old stuff. It wasn't always current. So that, yeah, I just traveled wherever I could find the music. Like West Soho, you know, was good too. You know, record and tape exchange and other vinyl shops like that. I spent days and hours in there. That was my second home. Really.
So I suppose the thing is, my story is very similar to Angie's on that level, but on another thing to put in it. When I first started on DBC, Lepke asked me to play 60s music, and I thought, I don't have any 60s music. How am I going to play this? It's impossible, right? And it's not like, you know, like now you've got Spotify, you've got YouTube, you can just download things. No, it was not like that. You would have to stand up in the record shop for 8 hours sometimes, especially in the beginning, just to get certain tunes. So when I started to play 60s music, what Leroy did, I was really lucky. He set up this thing where I would go to people's houses and stay there for a couple of hours. It's like elderly people, probably my age now, yeah? And I'd be there and I'd listen to all the 60s music. And then what I took, I'd either beg, borrow and steal or just record. So I had consistent shows, because the other thing as well, when you do shows, you can't play the same records every single time. You've got to have a variation. So that was DBC. And then when I worked on LWR, thank God I got to know so many people. So sometimes I go to Bluebird and they would just have the records for me. And then I could just listen, you know, and say, yeah, that one, this one there. And then sometimes you get to know other DJs and they will tell you about rare grooves. So they will say to you, go to blah, blah, at such and such a time. They've got 10 records of this track. Go down there. They've saved one for you. You'd have to get down there quick. And then you'd know people that would go to Amsterdam or Copenhagen. And you say, please give me these records. Sometimes I go to other people's houses, beg, borrow and steal. You know, every week you have to think about how can you mix it up? How can you just sound so fantastic, better than everyone? Yeah, so that's my kind of take on it.
Funny rare groove, because I used to dance to it when it wasn't even rare groove. It was just coming out in the early 80s and late 70s at the Reno Frontline Moss Side Persian playing. Absolutely brilliant. And then when I heard it was rare groove, it's quite funny. But that, yeah, having a friendly record shop, especially as a woman buying records, is important. The way that they weren't racked. Often you did have, like you said, you had to wait in line, hear it played, put your hand up, be in the corner or something, just to make sure you get that record, because it is the dedication. Because you said, Camilla, that you were directed towards playing the 60s music, but it's playing a record, playing a style. And you also said you didn't often speak over the records, but you still had to find a voice. You still had to find a style, a presentation style. And yeah, the graveyard slot would help to a certain extent, but how did you find your way like that?
So I think think it's really funny because we talked about this before. So, and you probably identify with this, Angie, totally, yeah? As women, like when I first started, I was 21. So 21 to 32 was a big growth, you know, from a young woman to a mature woman. So your influences changed, what you're exposed to changed. The longer you are involved doing that, the more experienced you become, the more dedicated you become, the more engrossed you become in making sure that you do the best possible job as possible. So I don't know whether that answers your question. So you kind of change with it yourself. So what are the influences of the time? What and also for us as well, we played music that, so you might have a group that's a Black British group, for example, they're getting no airplay. No one's giving them a break. You might take up the gauntlet for them. And, you know, so you might start playing their tunes so that all of a sudden other people are exposed to them. And that's how a lot of people careers did develop as well. So I think that finding your voice, and also I did speak, but what it is, I didn't speak all over the record. You know, I did it as professional as possible. Otherwise you lose your listenership as well. You know what I mean? So that's what I would think and say about myself on my journey and how I found my voice. And obviously, as a younger woman, as you change, you develop a different voice. You know, you want different things. You know, I think, you know, in my 30s, I wanted to get married and have children. In my 20s, I was just a proper rebel. I didn't really care. I just wanted to get out there and play music. So my life was changing too. And also, I think that times were changing. What are your influences? So you had different, there was all of a sudden, instead of having 2 or 3 TV, all of a sudden there was like a lot more, and Sky came along. So there was more choice, you know? So,
I don't know. For me, my voice, obviously, I've got some old cassettes somewhere and they're online on Mixcloud. I think someone's put some up for the TKO, and I listen to them and I sound like I'm 6 years old. But it's great, it's okay. And then when I listened to the shows on KISS when I was there for nearly 10 years in the 90s, there's a massive shift because the music I was playlisted, so I was playing dance music. I wasn't really playing what I loved, which was soul and reggae music, only in the early hours of the morning. I think I had a show once a week doing that. And then my voice changed completely for that because I knew what I was playing and I loved it. But when you're playing a playlisted show of music, which was the sound of, say, KISS, Legal Station, daytime, I wasn't into it. So every time we put a track on, I'd turn the volume down in the studio. So I didn't have to keep listening to something I didn't like. And then I knew I had to do a link, you know, speak in between a track, up goes the volume. And then I'd speak and then I'd turn the volume down. And with my own music, oh my God, I was in that studio in seventh heaven. And I'll tell you something, you're right there about the graveyard shifts. You think no one's listening to you, Carmella, but they are. My switchboard on the legal station, I would say, would completely light up with requests. People were listening. They were really listening to every word and every step. They weren't distracted, like, say, daytime when we're working and it's on in the background. So I do know that late listeners are there in the daytime, definitely. So we had a lot of listeners.
Can you give a kind of flavour of the music that you were playing? We're talking genres, but say a British group that you brought forward, a favourite record, Angie. So just
Cool Notes.
Yeah,
Loose
Loose Ends. Deborah Glasgow, of course, the late Deborah Glasgow on Green Sleeves Reggae. Yeah, in fact, any record that came in that was like sung by a female, I would try and incorporate that. Certainly British music, soul music, reggae music, because I just knew it wouldn't get on the playlist. Well, it wouldn't
give us some more names if you can recall favourites.
Skipworth and Turner, Thinking About Your Love. Do you know what? When people do this to me, I freeze. My brain freezes. I'm trying to get out at once. I couldn't tell you. Know, there's so much. I mean, I love the Marvin Gayes and the classic souls, and there's lots of independent 7-inch souls.
Is there something you play now that you loved then that you can't be without now? Is that an easier?
Sorry, so that.
Is there something that you come back to and play again and again now for yourself that was then, that stayed for you?
Oh, well, it would be some of the Marvin Gaye stuff, I think. Yeah, but there are other unknown ones that you wouldn't know about. A guy called Frederick. He's an independent guy back then from the 80s, who's just doing music now after all this time. So there's people that are unknown that I would still play. Yeah.
I mean, we did have a lot of American influences.
Yeah.
When I think, it's funny because I wrote a couple of tracks, I don't even know why I did it. So things like Don Blackman, Heart's Desire, The Source featuring Candy Staton, hold on, Dexter Wanster, I'll Never Forget, Black Ivory, Mainline, I go on and on forever, you know. Brooklyn Express, You Need a Change of Heart, Aura, Are You Sing?
Oh my gosh, you got your list there.
I know, Steve Arrington, Nobody Can Be You, and that used to be my friend Derek Boland's favourite tune. The reason I have it is because people always put me on the spot and go, "Ew, so what's your favourite tunes?" And I'm like, there's thousands in my head. I can't just pinpoint.
I know. It was a bit of a question.
It's okay.
I do remember though, like, you know, when I think about DBC, you know, we really supported Trojan, the Trojan record label, Green Sleeves. Those, you know, they were based in Harlem, I think. So we always get their tune. And also, as well, we used to have power plays. Do you remember them, Angie?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So people would they'd pay you to play their tune.
Well, we wouldn't get paid.
Any other station. So you pay the power play.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you said the station would get paid, but you as DJs, you were doing it for the love of it, the passion.
Yeah. I mean, I was asked to pay £5 a show, and I said, no way.
What?
TKO, we were coming out of an old horses stable in Crystal Palace around the back of Stowe Hill. It was a appalling building, freezing cold. And I know the next meeting, we all complained about this particular studio. And then they said, well, we want £5 a show now. And the others paid for it, but I refused flatly, no. I'm not paying.
Yeah, I did hear about that you had to pay to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, Angie, that has to be highlighted, we never got paid. You're talking about not 1 year, not 2 years. You're talking about maybe 10, 12 years of doing shows on the radio. And records were expensive. You know, imports were really expensive. You know, you could make £3 on a record or £50 sometimes on a record. So we never got paid. I mean, I don't know about you, Angie, but the sacrifices that we've made. I never got my hair done. I hardly ever got food. All I needed was those records, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, same with me. I was still driving around in an old Astra. I started at Kiss FM. Everyone's driving around in BMWs and Mercedes, and I still had my old banger.
Solid. Yeah.
And also, I think one thing to note as well, the lifestyle of a female DJ, it was hardcore. You know, you it's not like you had Sunday dinner in your house and invited your family. Those things didn't come into play. You knew that you had to, like, when you started doing clubs and DJing on the radio, it might be your whole weekend. So you might not see your friends for maybe 6 months. You don't go on holiday. You're on this horse. You're just going for it. Right. No one's going to knock you off it.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah.
It's a passion.
And I always remember once I hit my 30s, I thought, oh my God, I better really think about having children now. Otherwise, I'm never going to have kids because I'm always going to be this DJ, like, you know, that lifestyle. So, you know, then I entered into motherhood, and that's a different story, you know, which I don't know whether that's going to come up. But you couldn't, you couldn't have a small baby and do that job. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm. No, they wouldn't allow you to take your child there.
No, can you imagine it? Breastfeeding on the station. That would have caused a riot.
How could you mute your baby? How could you mute the baby from crying?
Not only that, those stations were calling, it would be impossible.
You know? No, a lot of family support when it came to it with having kids and DJing. It's a different story. What made you stop doing it? Was it the stations just? I mean, the whole pirate situation changed. There were different attempts along the way. I mentioned with the boats when they stopped, they were made illegal. I don't, just different things happened. The finances didn't work. It was, they had to move into different waters, and then we got Radio 1, and then that wasn't satisfying. So we moved on, and we have the Pirates around 1987 or so. The
88.
Pirates were told if there was a carrot of a license. There were two various
Yeah, you have.
stops about licenses, and then stations came off air hoping to be legal. But can you say a little about that, maybe?
So one of the things I want to say is the reason that DBC came off the air way back in 1984 is because they were told they would get a community license. And obviously it was a community station. It wasn't a business on that level trying to get money. It was all about community. So they came off the air, right? That never happened, right? When I went on LWR, that was the same thing. They were told, if you come off the air, then you will get a legal license. It never happened, right? And then I remember I left LWR because I'd got offered an hour's slot on Capital in the graveyard shifts, and I thought, right, but I was told that you have to come off the air. You're too well known on the Pirates. You have to break away. So you take that risk, don't you, Angie? But the thing is, if they then say hell no, what can you do? You know, so that happened quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, I think Kiss FM won the license, didn't they? And they
1990, yeah.
In September 1990, they got on, but they were more your sort of underground kind of call station when it was a pirate. But sadly, it became a commercial, so it lost. It was very difficult for any station really to transition, I think, from a pirate to a commercial, to try and satisfy your shareholders and then satisfy those from the underground like us, you know, that were street. We were the street. We were the sound of the street.
I mean, that's what it was all about, wasn't it? The music from the streets. And then all of a sudden, I know this sounds really weird. It's like a very parallel to kind of compare it with, a bit like Animal Farm, you know, when the pigs became like the humans. That's what happened, I think, with radio. All of a sudden, it was lost. The whole philosophy, everything was lost. It was all about commercial. But to be honest, right, when you're doing pirate radio, eventually you're going to want to get paid. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're doing it for how many years? 10, 15 years? You know, you need to eat at least, you know, get a break on legal. But I did get on a legal station, WNK, and it was proper boring. Once a pirate, always a pirate. It was so boring. I thought,
oh dear.
Anyway.
That's quite a good point to bring in Q&As and just see what our large audience would like to ask.
Hi, Carmella. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Sheen from Royal Museums Greenwich. So I'm just coming to do the Q&A with our amazing panelists. Thank you so much. Such a amazing stuff being shared in the chat as well, actually, and just so much information. And I agree with one of the comments saying that a new film needs to be made, you know, just about all of your experiences.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go through some of the questions, and some of them are to certain people and some of them are to you all. So starting with Deanna, this is for Angie and Carmella. Can you give a piece of advice on bringing your music material to pirate radio?
You've got to go with your heart. What is it that you want to say with your music? You know, don't follow the same thing like everyone else. Think outside the box. What is missing? You know, there's music changes constantly. Like, you know, you've got grime, you've got all these other genres of music, you've got Afrobeats. What's personal for you? What do you think people might be interested in? That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You have to try and find your own sound, don't you?
Yeah, don't be like everyone else. You
got to be unique and take the risk. I mean, we know about risks.
Hey,
go for it.
My favorite risk. I'm joking.
This is a really interesting one. Did either of the DJs come across any female engineers or staff members who might have understood the transmitter setup and could have solved issues? if you were DJing alone during the graveyard shift and technical issues occurred, would you be able to sort it out? And another question, of course, there's always someone. What was the station's policy towards a possible raid if you were alone in the studios?
Oh, wow.
Hey, I'll let you answer that, Angie.
Well,
And Debbie, you can answer as well, by the way, because it's to all of you. So go ahead, Carmella.
Oh, okay. So, okay, so there was no policy. Policy? What is that? There's no health and safety. If your deck goes and your mic goes, you better just sort it out, because at the end of the day, you're going to have like 1 million people listening to you, and all they're interested in is that you messed it up. The equipment might be crap, but so what? If the DTI come and arrest you, tough. You best just make sure all your best records are not in that bag, because that's how it is. You get arrested, you get fined, so what? You know, that's how it was. There was no safety net. What's that, Angie? There was no like health and safety.
No, if you was to see the state of the equipment and how the wiring was, gosh, I'm not an engineer, but I know that it's not safe. It was not safe anyway. They didn't care. It was a shoestring job. They knew if it got raided, they'd lose a couple of £100 worth of equipment. But in those, when I started in the 80s, I think from 85 on, it was microwave links. So a studio could never be found straight away. They'd find the transmitter first, and then the studio, we would have been told by a pager, leave the studio, right, Carmella? And then
if you had a pager.
If you had a pager. Oh yeah, we did have a pager. But no, there was no kind of policy of what to do at all. You were basically a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, you think about it now, you've got mobiles now, you've got the internet. We had no mobile, right? There was no internet. If you got arrested, tough. I mean, one of the things that you said, Angie, which I really loved, was about the shopping bag. When I used to go to I used to have a shopping bag. I couldn't carry those boxes, it killed my back. But also, you were the least likeliest DJ ever, because there was no women, so no one would give you the second glance, So having a shopping bag was a great deterrent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was it. We were smart, weren't we?
Yeah, listen, I've got to tell you the story, because there was a question there about if we ever got raided, right? So I'll make this really quick. One summer, right, I'd done this wicked show. I was so happy. I'm going to get on the radio. I'm going to do my show. I get in the lift. Mr. Gotts is in the lift with the police.
Mr. Gotts is the DTI sleuth for raiding stations.
He was in the lift.
Eric Gotts.
How am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get out of this? But then I realized I was the most unlikeliest looking DJ. I looked like a little kid with my mum's shopping bag. I just got out of the next floor. I was fine. I ran off, phoned up the people, and Zach from L, to be honest, DTI's in the lift. They're going to raid the station. That is a true story.
I see. It worked, didn't it? It worked being a woman back then.
Most unlikeliest DJ ever. And I don't know how tall you are, Angie, but I'm 5'3", right? So when you're smaller, you're the most even unlikeliest DJ in the world.
I'm not far off.
Okay, I'll go to the next question from HM Stack. It sounds like passing ships, but something must have connected you all as pioneers. What was that connection? Were you conscious of it at the time or only afterwards?
I was definitely conscious of it at the time. Remember, for us as well, like, I was coming from a black perspective, playing black music, that was not heard, that wasn't given no platform, it was the top 40, that was it. And there was hardly any black performers on those top 40s way back in those days. So I knew, as a black female, I had to make sure that I, gave people different experiences on the radio. And that's what, for me, that was always in my head, always there, constantly. That's for me.
Yeah, sorry, what was that question again? I was so wrapped up in your answer.
Sorry.
It was, were you conscious of you being pioneers at the time, or was it something that you thought about later?
No, I wasn't really conscious of being a pioneer woman at all. I had no sort of ego about, I'm going to do this because I'm a woman and I'm better than a man and I'm going to show them and blah. No, it came purely from my heart and soul, really, just to share the passion of my music more than anything else, because the radios generally were not playing what I wanted to hear. And I knew that there were people out there that would love what we were playing, and we could tell by the audience figures from, we were a massive threat to pirate scene, huge threat to the DTI. That's why they offered the licenses in '88, because they knew they had to take them off air. But the funniest thing now is there are more pirates today on air than there were then. So what is that saying? Are we not? They're not serving. Commercial stations are still not serving the communities.
No.
So no, I never went in there from that point of view. And I mean, I was told I was a token woman at an interview once, and I won't say which station that was, but and I said, well, if anyone's going to do, if a woman's going to do it, and it's not me, well, I better do it. And that's my attitude, and that's yours too, isn't it, Carmella?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, there was many times I was absolutely petrified, you know, but I just get up there and do it. You know, the thing about the pirates as well, they have brought where music is today, like with grime and all of that. I remember we used to do all dayers, and they'd be absolutely packed. You know, we do all days in the park, we do all days in different clubs around London. They'd be packed, you know, and we'd also start selling T-shirts. Some people's demand was really enormous. It was a thriving business at one point. It became massive.
Yeah, I remember you at carnivals. It was fabulous.
Yeah, carnivals.
Oh, yeah.
Carnivals was fantastic because that's when you met everyone. But remember as well, it was illegal. You didn't want everyone to know what you looked like, just in case. Yeah.
Someone's actually asking here, did you guys ever reveal your identities? And if you did, at which part of your career did you?
Near the end. The only reason I kind of let my identity come out a little bit was when I used to do all days. So I worked with the Jigs and a guy called Ron Tom, and we were called the Boogie Bunch or something like that. And so we would go and do the Soul Syndicate and the Boogie Bunch. So that'd be DJ Lane and Barry B and JJ, and then we'd go and do clubs, and then people would see what you looked like. But for years, I never felt comfortable. Like now on the screen, you can see my name. For years, I never wanted anyone to know who I was. I just didn't. I wanted to be anonymous, totally, you know, because it's against the law.
Yes, there is that element, isn't it, about being on pirate and then doing the clubs. I was doing them together. Do you know, it didn't cross my mind until now about it. You know, I didn't feel threatened about going out with my DJ name.
Yeah, but I think because I worked as a social worker.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
but I couldn't let people know who I was because it was illegal, right? And I always had this fear I was going to get arrested, you know, and then I'd have to leave my job. And then, so I always felt like I never told anyone my name. Even when I used my name, it was always Camilla, not Carmella. But even now, I still have this kind of overwhelming fear that someone's going to find out who I was and come and arrest me. It's crazy, isn't it?
Do you think we were like more sensitive than the guys then, worrying about being caught?
I think, do you know what? I reckon we weren't. You know, Angie, we were there for the music. We loved doing what we did. I don't remember. I just, only time I ever got fearful was obviously I didn't want to get sacked. That's all, you know.
Or lose your vinyl.
Yeah,
speaking of vinyl, we've got a question from Angela here. You said that you travelled to get your albums.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a sharing of music with the other DJs at the station.
You must be joking. No, the DJ. When I was at Kiss FM, the legal station now, they'd listen to my show, and some of the guys would come into the building and say, "Angie, can I borrow that record? I just want to sample the intro." And I'd say, "You are kidding me? No way." That's what they were after. And I wouldn't share. I'm sorry. I paid too much money. No, but it is about being not maybe the first, but I just did not want to share that because I knew they were going to obliterate it. They were going to just take it and resample it, and I wasn't going to have that. No.
Do you remember that certain DJs, including us probably, we would take the labels off because we didn't want to know what we were playing. You know, especially if you got that rare groove that no one could get, you take the label off, and then people would come and check what is that?
Yeah.
There's nothing, and they wouldn't be able to tell you take the label off. You never shared records.
I've got one.
You never shared
white label.
Yeah.
You never shared. That would be like a taboo subject.
That's another subject. Yeah. You must be joking. And the reggae tunes, the guys would maybe put I don't know, a mark on them, and you wouldn't even have a clue what the title was.
Yeah.
That was mainly in the reggae scene. I saw that more than anything else. You could never tell who it was, what it was, when it came out.
I think it's funny, you know, like the only time I ever had a problem with male DJs was when I worked with male DJs that I did not know. Because then you turn up and if you did a better set than them, they would get so vexed with you. They would do everything in their power to sabotage your bit.
That's right. Yes, right.
And you played a better set, they were so angry. It was ridiculous.
Oh, they play it again to prove that they've got what you just played.
How dare you?
How dare you play it first?
How dare you? Who are you?
Who are you? I did a gig once at the Albany, where I first began in the 80s, and I did one in 2000, whatever it was. And Jazzy V was on the bill with me, and he was late, so I ended up doing a 2-hour set instead of a 1-hour set. And I was really challenged because I only took as you know, we don't take, if you're going to do a gig for about an hour or half, you don't take 3 hours worth of tunes. You know, of your crowd. It's a rare groove night, and you're going to play that. So I'm slowly running out of tunes, but anyway, I managed. And as I came off stage, people were asking me who I was and where did I come from and where did you get that music? And I said, well, years ago I was on a station, but I didn't stop too long to explain. But it just goes to show I was with another generation who didn't know me.
Yeah.
And that was really, it threw me for a bit, you know, because some people would know my name, but they had no idea where I came from.
Well,
right.
I think the thing is with music is that each generation generates their own, you know, like I really love Jasmine Evans, I love Dottie, I love Yinka, I love those girls. I listen to them on the radio, I'm like, why weren't those girls there when we almost like growing up on the radio?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just themselves, they embrace sexuality, they embrace who they are, they don't give a damn. Whereas we women, even though we were like that, we had to kind of hold it back a little bit.
Yes,
because people would feel a bit too threatened, you know, like you're a bit too confident and too cocky. Let's pull you down a peg or two, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's a question that's quite a few people are asking on the similar lines, really, about the sort of the scene now, and like, do you think it's gotten better for women radio presenters? Yeah, just what do you think the current state is for radio in terms of participation for women?
Well, I think the fact that the 3 people I just mentioned, you could even mention so many more. Back in the day, you'd only get like a handful, you know, and you'd only maybe get 2 that were really kicking it, you know. We were invisible unless someone gave us a break, you know. You had to have that break, someone believing in you to give you give you a shot at it, you know, give you a chance. So I do think I just really love that young generation of female DJs. I just think good on them, and they are fantastic. And I feel like when I listen to them, they are themselves. You know, they bring the music, but they bring their personality. They're not frightened. I think they're fearless. That's what I think, anyway.
I agree with you. Definitely more fearless. And in the club scene in the early 90s, I did see more women in the nightclubs. We might not be given a prime space, but there was definitely coming forward compared to when we were gigging. You know, you could count on one hand, if that.
The percentage of women on mainstream radio is still pretty low, especially in prime shots. I mean, there was a big thing. I think there's one woman breakfast presenter, maybe 2. Couple of women drive time presenters. Weekend radio is better. 6 Music is better in terms of mainstream radio. 1Extra is bringing forward those young women. In community radio, I think it's better. That in terms of who is visible, who is brought forward. But I think it's still a struggle myself.
Yeah.
Well, you know, sorry. Oh my God, sorry. One thing you've got to take note is the fact that it's possible, right? When we did it, me and Angie did it, it was not a possibility. It was unheard of. Now, if you say there's a woman on this station or that, it's not a shock. It's not, what do you mean? So that is there, you know. So we've come forward on a level, but yes, it still is unequal, but it's more of a possibility. So who knows the generation after them? It would just be like, water off a duck's back. No big, you know.
I think
we're in the podcast generation now. Sorry, Angie.
I think moving into when I was at KISS, we did have a lot of the breakfast shows, two people, a woman always with a guy. And then after a time, I think now we are hearing, I think, more female solo voices running a show. I'm not sure. I haven't really tuned in. Here in Wales, where I live, the BBC, there are more women here on air, which is great. Janice Long, we remember her.
Oh, I remember Janice Long.
She's here.
Nightingale. Do you remember?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Annie. Yeah. But look at what time Annie was on, or still is.
I mean,
so just to, I just need to wrap it up now, because we could easily go for another half hour, because it's just been amazing, absolutely amazing. And like, as a child of a pirate radio DJ, my dad used to run Dance FM back in Walthamstow back in the 80s. Late in the 80s, and I have very distinct memories of them putting a transmitter on the top of our flats and a police raid, because the radio was in our box room. So this has been absolutely amazing to hear from a woman's perspective, and everyone's just been so excited and hyped about this in the chat. And yeah, I really hope someone does a documentary for you guys in the future. But just to wrap it up, people are asking, have you got like track lists online, and what's your favorite standout track? But also, I guess, where can we still listen to you guys?
So I haven't done radio. I know this sounds really bizarre. I haven't actually done radio for nearly 20 years, because I actually moved into TV for many years. But when I had my daughter and I became a mum, I just stopped doing all of that. I just kind of got on with motherhood. And so my shows, I don't think there are any recordings of it at all. I mean, I've got some tapes, but I don't even know how you would convert a tape onto a normal thing, So,
I can tell you that.
Angie?
I missed the first section.
Yeah.
My screen froze. Can you tell me what the first?
That's okay. The first part of it was like, what do you have any mixtapes online? What's your favorite standout track, and what are you doing now?
Okay, there are some things floating on Mixcloud and SoundCloud if they want to have a quick look at my Angie D pages there. And if they Google, they may find some TKO clips from other pirate radio websites. The big fans, I think AM FM is one of them, that has links from all the pirate radio stations, from the beginning till now, I think. And the other question was, are we going to be gigging or doing radio programs, was it?
Yeah.
I intend to get back out there with my headphones, but I'd love to have my own radio station on the internet. What do you reckon, Carmella?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, because people ask me all the time, hey, Carmella, can you come and do one? And I'm like, listen, I'm so relentless. I'm probably the worst DJ ever. I would just be up all week, sorting out my 2-hour show relentlessly. And I live with a really well-known DJ. We're kind of been together for 15 years. And back in the day, you couldn't go out with DJs off other stations because you'd get it. So in our house, it'd be a nightmare if I was on radio now. It'd be awful. But I'll never say never. Never say never.
I'll hold you to that.
Debbie, where can we
hear you?
You can find my Mixcloud, which is mixcloud.com/outerglobe. And most of my radio shows are on there. All the shows on Resonance are on Mixcloud. All the shows. I'm also on Threads Radio monthly as well. Those are all on Mixcloud. I do try and amalgamate them onto mixcloud.com/outerglobe. Pretty active on Facebook and other media. So if you look up Outerglobe, there's only me, Outerglobe, one word, and then you'll find things.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. If there was a round of applause, I'd be asking for everyone to do that now. This will be recorded and should be up online late this week. So tonight was about exploring pirate radio women, modern day women pirates on this way, sound waves. And so thank you so much. And yeah, so keep an eye on our Royal Museums Greenwich page. There'll be more really interesting events, different types of history that we'll be exploring. And yeah, sign up, follow up, and follow all these fantastic women, and support sort of the new generation and all generations of pirate radio women. So thank you and good evening. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao bella. Ciao
Ciao
bella.
bella.
Ciao bella.